Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. Woohoo!
Let's do it. Hi, I'm Rayanne.
And I'm Taylor.
And welcome to Tipsy Book Talks. Today we're going to be talking about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and we have our One Flew Over the Cosmos Nest cocktail.
This is my very first Cosmos, so I am very excited.
I love Cosmos, so they're a drink I go to normally, so.
I'm trying all new things on this channel. Cheers!
Cheers!
It's a little sour.
I'm making myself a pretty good cocktail.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're talking about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. And let me just say that this is my favorite classic book. This is my favorite one that we read in high school. And I think it still holds true so far because there's just so much that happens in this book. But we are trying something new, so we're going to have a non-spoiler section and a spoiler section. So you're in the non-spoiler section. It is about a man named Chief Bromden, who's a Native American man in a mental institution, and he pretends like he is deaf and mute, like he hasn't spoken in years. Basically, this man named McMurphy comes in, it's like a new inmate, he comes in, shakes it up, and the whole entire hospital gets turned upside down.
Yeah, it's a fun book. It deals with a lot of interesting characters. Overall, this was a book that I actually never read in high school. It was pre my time, so
Is it your first time reading it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god!
This is my first time reading it. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in this book
It's so good. So for me, I'm gonna give it 5 stars. Again, it is my favorite classic book. Yeah, so 5 out of 5 for me.
I would honestly give it a 4 out of 5. It wasn't my favorite because I still have a couple favorites that we're gonna focus on later on, but I do really like it, and I mean, out of the other classics we've read, I definitely would rank it pretty high because it was a good book. So, yeah.
There's just so much to talk about, and every time you read it, there's always something new.
Yeah, it was very interesting because reading it, I would read and then I'd have to stop and let it sink in, but listening, I would be like, all right, and I would kind of zone out and come back in, but the times I came back in, it was like the key crucial moments that I was like, oh shit, this is a lot. This is heavy.
It'll like be in like really funny parts too, and then all of a sudden it'll say something like so profound in like the snap of a finger, and you're just like, wait, I'm sorry. I was listening to the audiobook most of the time too because I've already read it multiple times actually, but it was done by John C. Reilly, who, if you don't know who it is, it's the guy who's in Step Brothers and Talladega Nights. So it was just like, most of the time I was just like imagining like this goofy man who looked so much like the character, I think, in my head. But I'm just like imagining like this funny dude in my head, and then like all of a sudden like something really profound will be said, and we're gonna talk about it later in the spoiler section, but God, it was so good. But let's get into the spoiler section.
Heck yeah, so if you haven't read it, just go ahead and pause this here, read it, or listen to it.
Come back later.
Yeah, and come back and rewatch.
By the way, all the classics that we read are like online for free. So no excuses.
Yeah.
You don't even have to buy them.
No.
We bought them. We went the extra mile.
We wanted to own. Here, I'll even show that I'm not
But
lying.
yes,
I own it.
leave. Goodbye.
Bye.
Come back in the future.
Cut to
Spoiler section!
Alright, so
Another cheers. We're not drinking fast enough.
Oh, I'm already.
Oh, damn. I'm behind. Ugh.
I know, it's now starting to get to, after it's been shaken, it's like settling into the vodka at the bottom. You're like, what?
Also, I feel like I have like a hair on my nose that just keeps tickling it.
Yeah, it's not her being drunk, everybody. It's a hair on her nose.
Okay. First, we're going to talk about our favorite and least favorite characters. Ryan, who is your favorite character?
I have 2 favorite characters. So,
Really?
yeah, 2 protagonists in the story, Bromden and McMurphy. I love them both. I think they're just such a funny dynamic duo. And they're just... Okay, McMurphy's coming in and just literally like with everybody right off the bat. I'm like, this guy is an interesting, lovable guy.
It's like Barney from How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah. Like
He's lovable but up.
Yeah, you like want to be like, okay, this guy is deep down rooted awful, but like you're rooting for him the entire time because you're like, yeah, like all these other characters. He has a real like sweet sensibility to him that's like, we need to gain basically our like balls back, and like for all the people there,
men.
But, yeah, exactly, men. But Bromden on the other hand is like a sweet, like quiet guy who genuinely is like, I lived this crazy life. Like he talks about so many of his like memories. It's so down to earth, like heartfelt. I'm like, oh, I just want to hug him.
Big man.
Yeah, he's like 7 feet tall, and I'm like, ah, you teddy bear, like I love you. But it's mostly just the fact that he kind of looks out like for everybody and is like trying to keep tabs on like how everybody is. He's so keen to detail, which is what makes him a great narrator for the story. But yeah, my absolute 2 favorites. They're so crazy. I love them.
Yeah. So mine is also Chief Bromden. Excellent narrator. He is an unreliable narrator because in the beginning he is having these fantasies and these illusions.
Mm-hmm.
So he is unreliable, but the things that he like, it almost moves so seamlessly between like his illusions and what is happening. You almost see through his eyes of like having mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
So I love him. Very sweet man. I also love Harding. He is also a very sweet man, and he's like definitely the I don't want to say like dad of the group.
I was literally
he's like the dad of the group.
He is the dad. He's just there. He has a lot of information on everything.
He's very wise. He's very sound, and like he likes to be involved, but he's like the one who is able to like speak to like everyone. He's also just kind of down to debate and argue sometimes, just for fun.
But like, okay, so when McMurphy comes in and McMurphy's like, who's the head in charge? I'm here to like take over. Harding's like, that's me, I guess. But realistically, they don't like, McMurphy never fully like takes over. He respects Harding's placement in the asylum and is like, all right, I'm gonna be your right-hand man. I'm gonna help you out.
And least favorite characters is obviously Nurse Ratched.
Oh gosh, Nurse Ratched.
You can't like, I don't know. I was trying to read it in the point of view this time as like, this lady is just doing her job.
Yeah.
When Murphy first came in, I was like, damn, Nurse Ratched is just trying to like keep things in order, trying to watch this mental hospital, and like this man is really it up. And like, I really tried to like reroute in thinking it this way and trying to see things from her point of view. But even then, once you get to the end, you're like, she has some serious mental illness as well. And that's what she is like. She needs to have constant control over everybody else.
Yep.
It's a disorder. She needs help.
Yep.
But goddamn, she needs help.
She's a whack job herself, running a bunch of other whack jobs.
I don't know if
that's right.
I have like another like least. Actually, I don't think I have another least favorite character.
Yeah.
Only least favorite, Nurse Ratched.
No, it's okay, because Miss Ratchet's my only other least favorite, my only
Everyone
least
else
favorite.
has something lovable about them.
Yeah, they're all a little up, but we like it for we like them for
Who's
it.
not a little up?
Seriously, who's not? That's what gets me about this whole mental institution
It's
is
us.
that it's everybody. She degrades a lot of people. She is like the manipulative, like mothering hen, which I want to get to like chickens and whatnot. She's like the mothering hen that smothers her like people, and she like has to make sure that nothing changes because these are her kids. And like when McMurphy comes in and it all up, she's like, who is this child? He's not mine. I don't want him. Send him away. And that's why she tries to get him sent away multiple times, and it's kind of funny. But yeah, I don't like her because she's manipulative and awful, and she with all of the patients personally. First time we kind of see group therapy as like a delved into. It's about Harding's, how his wife doesn't want to sleep with him, and I'm like,
how he feels like incompetent.
Yeah, like she straight up calls him out as like, you know, what do you think the reason that your wife doesn't want to sleep with you is? And it's like, that is such a hardcore, awful thing to just be sitting in group therapy, and instead of being like, okay, who wants to talk about their issues, she just hones in on one person. I'm like, oh, that is horrific. To anybody that does that or targets somebody like that, you're practically a little Satan incarnate right there. I'm like, no. It's a favorite quote.
So many! So, I looked up a couple of my favorite quotes. Again, I was listening to the audiobook, and these quotes were the ones that like literally made me stop, turn off the audiobook, and like write them down. But so the first one is on page 90, and it literally, both of them were from Chief Bromden, because this is like
so
sweet
eloquent.
man, this sweet eloquent man who just out of nowhere says these really profound things, and again, always right after like something really intense. Chief Bromden was basically having this illusion where like it was the first time he hadn't taken his night meds, and he was imagining that like the aides and stuff in the hospital were these robots who were basically implanting the patients with these little like robotic things.
Yep.
So he is just like imagining this, and then he was like, things as crazy as a big machine room down in the bowels of a dam where people get cut up by robot workers don't exist. But if they don't exist, how can a man see them? So that, like, literally, I like the way that it was said too in the audiobook. I was just like, who are we to say that something isn't your truth? You know, just because somebody sees things differently and somebody experiences things differently than we do, like, who are we to say that it doesn't exist? If he's seeing it, if he's experiencing it, who are we to say that it's wrong? So I was very much like taken aback. I literally had to turn it off for like probably 20 minutes and just sit with it and like think about it. I was like, it was so good. And there was another one on page 210 that basically like these people had come to his house and they were looking for his father. They completely ignored him, pretending like he didn't even exist. And he said, but I remembered one thing. It wasn't me that started acting deaf. It was people that first started acting like I was too dumb to hear or see anything at all. So it was like this whole entire time he's acting deaf in this book. And like he can't hear and he can't speak to people. Basically as a way to protect himself, but he wasn't the one who started it. Like everyone just kind of saw who he was and just like acted off their assumptions. And because of that, he saw that as a way to protect himself and almost adopted that identity onto him. I think there's a lot of like negative connotations with mental health, and like he was like, I need to basically learn every way I can to protect myself, you know?
Yeah. My actual favorite section of the book is when McMurphy comes in, because we can actually see in his character when he goes around and he literally is like talking to each person and like actually he shakes everybody's hand, even the vegetables. Like there's one guy that's literally strapped to the wall that like is stuck there at all points in time, and he literally goes up and like forcefully takes his hand and shakes it. And it's something that I'm like, you can tell that this man is like, one, testing the waters, but two, also seeing what is going on in this situation, because he knows he's been around like different jails and different areas, and he's like, okay, there's always going to be the leader, there's going to be the sheep that follow, there's going to be the outcasts, and he even said when he met Bromden, he saw through his thing almost instantly, because he gave him a little like wink. And with Nurse Ratched, he was like, oh, so this is the woman that's trying to like corral everybody and get him to like act a certain way. That's why I was like, I really like his opening number, I should say, where he just comes in and just like flaunts, and it's the fact that he laughs, and that's what breaks Bromden from his fog.
Not only that, but it shows just like how much he didn't follow directions straight from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like he immediately walked in and was like, I am going to defy everything that you guys do. So I was like, ooh, it's spicy.
Go into symbols and focus on the fog specifically. I think that that is a great metaphor, because in college I wrote about a short story having to do with fog. So the fog and like how it completely clouds our mind, and how we don't actually realize that like we all have a certain thing that builds and builds, and for Chief Bromden, it's insane for him that he uses it as a coping mechanism, as like a way to just go through life so he doesn't have to think about all the things that he's dealt with and that his tribe has dealt with, or that his like family initially has dealt with, because he talks a lot about how people obviously have depicted him as like deaf and dumb his entire life because he's just this ginormous giant who doesn't say anything, that it's just like he thinks that as a society we're like, what is it, spreading the fog or something like that, that it's like
we're part of the Combine,
the Combine, the whole idea
we're all
of
being
like,
made in a factory,
that we are all simulated into trying to be this ideal perfect United States citizen that has to do exactly what the government says, and that they're feeding us this fog to get us into the mindset that it's like, ooh, I love that like depiction of it, and like the ideal of like, oh shit, this is how a lot of people had gone through life, which is the the whole idea of like the nuclear family and all that fun stuff.
It's like so interesting too, because the way he depicts the fog is he's like, I'm in it against my will, I'm in it against my will, and then the second he starts getting pulled out, he starts to get scared. He's like, McMurphy keeps pulling me out of the fog and I wish that he wouldn't. but it's like he doesn't really have a choice. There's something about McMurphy that draws him out. And like, even though it's something that he's like, oh yeah, this is the government imposed, like this is just the way that they're controlling us, he also is afraid to leave it. It's like both his coping mechanism and his downfall. The way that Nurse Ratched is depicted, they often call Nurse Ratched like a mother hen.
Initially, when McMurphy comes in, he calls all the people chickens, like as what we would think of as chickens, as like they're cowardly and don't want to do anything, but he also depicts them as chickens as like, well, with a nest of whatever you would, a giant group of chickens, you
they
like
start pecking each other.
Yeah, they start pecking at each other until like they pick one person to peck at, and it's that whole like mob mentality of like going after one person in order to save the rest of everybody else. But it's like the idea of chickens, there's a whole like thematic symbolism within it, and the entire One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, like cuckoo meaning chickens, the cuckoo's nest is a symbolism for the ward, or like all of that stuff. And it's like the fact that McMurphy's the one chicken that decides to fly away, like that decides to like leave. There's that whole mother henning of Nurse Ratched. There's the entire community of the asylum that is a bunch of chickens pecking at each other in order to survive and like actually be able to go about their life being normal. Like I think that is such an interesting analogy and like symbol to put onto all of these people of like birds. The entire title of this book is after a nursery rhyme, which you can find in the cover of like almost any One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's a child's nursery rhyme about counting, apparently. And it's literally like one flew east, one flew west, one flew over the cuckoo's nest. And it's like, obviously, like, I also like to think of it as like, okay, one flew east, one flew west. At the end of all of this, like, everybody left. He broke through and he broke off in a different way. So everyone, if you want to think about it a certain way, everyone's leaving out of the front door. But Bromden literally broke a wall and decided to go the other way against, like, what everybody else is doing. That it's like, they're all the chickens, they're all the birds in this
He was
poem.
the only chronic to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Everyone else was there by will because they didn't fit in. They were all kind of separate when things started. It's like they were all just kind of like, okay, we are here for self-betterment, and like what we need to do in order to make that happen is like basically like throwing and selling each other out. And then it wasn't until McMurphy came that they kind of started to pose this united front. It was like almost like they were all pecking at each other, and they all started pecking at Nurse Ratched. Yeah. Once they started to be united and started to be more of a team and like have like real life friendships is when they started to actually get better. Like that's what brought Chief Bromden out of his fog. He actually started to make friends, and then once he did start to make friends, he started to let people know that he wasn't deaf. Just the idea of being able to talk to somebody and let people know what has happened to him, like it completely changed everything. But oh yeah, when they leave. So like when they leave, everyone has already left at that point, and Chief Bromden actually goes back home. So like this idea where I don't know why he was put in there. It doesn't exactly say. It just says that he's a Native American man and he was put in there because he was deaf and dumb. And like, that's it. We know nothing else about him.
Yeah, we don't know if he was actually put in there or if he went in there himself. Like,
we do know that he was super, got electric shock therapy like crazy. Like, had like the most dosage of anybody else.
Yeah, he was also there the longest. That's all we know. But it's like, it could have been from him being in the military that they were like, oh, he's an idiot.
Also, almost all of them who have a backstory have served a certain amount of time in the military.
PTSD that was undiagnosed and people didn't know about. People are literally like, oh, these people are crazy.
Every character serves time in the military.
Because the military f***s you up. I'm sorry, I was never in the military, but it's just like, you see so much traumatic events there that people are like, why aren't these people sane? Like, what happened? Like, everyone talks about the hardening of coming out of the military, that everyone's like, oh, these people are so much more hardened to life, and it's because, yeah, they've seen
some shit. Billy Bibbit, though, like, that was, like, the hardest one for me. But Billy Bibbit killed himself in the end. Like, he had a stutter, and he had some very serious mommy issues, which, like, again, when she came to visit, it kind of alluded to the fact that maybe she was, like, kind of sexual with her son.
Yeah, I was about to say, it definitely felt to me like it was very much a, like, she sexually abused him, and then that's kind of, like, what him over from the get-go. So it's like,
and he dealt with a lot of self-harm because of that, and like literally because of the fact that like Nurse Ratched again, why she's my least favorite character.
Oh,
She was like, I'm going
bitch.
to take it upon myself to tell your mother what happened because I kind of know what's happening here.
Yeah.
And like, just the fear that he felt drove him to the very end.
Yeah, he was the one that kind of dealt with the most family-induced, like, trauma, whereas everybody else dealt with, like, outside trauma. Like, Chief himself dealt with people thinking he was deaf and dumb all of his time. You're like, if people just ignore you, you're gonna feel a little crazy. You're gonna be like, my God, am I? Like,
Not only that, but literally the genocide of his people.
yes!
They completely,
Exactly.
like, infiltrated their little way of life. And they alluded so much to, like, the way that the Native Americans adopted drinking. Like, his father had a drinking problem.
That broke
And
my
even
heart.
in the very end where he was like, I'm gonna go and like find my tribe and see if there's anybody else I know who hasn't drunk themselves to death.
Yeah, there's...
Because it was such a problem at the time.
It's still a problem
Yeah.
now. A lot of people like talk about that, and it's like, I mean, I'm not Native American, but I've heard stories about literally people having such issues on their little tiny plot of land where it's like their tribe used to take up mass amounts of like
Yeah.
America that it's like, oh crap.
The last thing I want to bring up before we end it, because we're running late,
Yes.
but also just like the size, going off of the chief's father, the main chief, literally like they talk about how he was such a big man, and the first time that Chief Bromden talks about like his father, he's like, he was a big man, he was a very big man for almost his whole entire life, but everything just kept hounding him and making him smaller and like picking at him until he was nothing but like a little man.
Yeah.
And so like that's how the chief felt. Like, he was like, he literally was like, I'm so tiny now. I'm so tiny. He's the biggest man there.
Yeah.
But, like, basically, like, his self-confidence and his personal self is, like, this big now.
Yeah.
And, like, the only thing that needed to build him up was just, like, someone to listen. Someone
Yeah.
to, like, care for him. Actually care for him. And the first person who ever did that was McMurphy. We have to end it.
Yeah, we have to
Again,
end it.
there's
Done.
so much more to talk about. We are out of time and out of
Done.
drinks.
And we're clearly...
Thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah,
Please
thank you.
read the book.
Please.
I
it
know
is-
this is already, it's, you know, you should be gone if you haven't read the book. I don't know what you're still doing here.
Yeah.
But please, please, please pay more attention to this because this is like
It
one of
is.
the best, most amazing books I have ever read.
So deeply detailed.
So thank you so much for watching. Please follow us on Instagram.
Please.
Our handle is @tipsy_book_talks.
Yes.
And we post a lot of our content there and keep you guys updated. And that way you can read along with us and we'll tell you ahead of time what we are reading.
Yep, we will give you a heads up all the time. We will talk about what we're filming, and we'll probably even do some like Q&A or like some pick a number type situation. So
Also, in the comments, please tell us your favorite classic, and if we haven't gotten to it yet, we will try to get to it very soon.
we will get to it probably in the order that we get comments. So we'll be like, yes, let's do it. But yeah, thank you for everything, everyone. Sorry,
Yay!
I'm being so weird.
I guess we're gonna cheers empty glass.